Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, dogs, cats, aliens, however you choose to identify this wonderful day or evening, depending on what time zone you choose to listen to us in. That's right, it is time once again for the worst 120 minutes in all of sports, the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. We got an exciting show tonight where we have absolutely no clue what we're actually going to do, like we do always. We're going to talk a little bit about the U.S. men's national team. We've got our good friend Los on. He's going to give us a little bit about Spurs. Coach G to talk about Arsenal. Hopefully, Celtic Cam has sobered up a little bit by now and can join us to talk about Scotland, the playoffs, and that Old Firm derby, which saw Celtic take a 6-point lead in the Scottish Premier League. We'll reach out to Bayern Rob a little bit later. He was down in Costa Rica last week to watch the U.S. men in their final qualifying match. Spoiler alert, that didn't go all that well. But he's going to give us a recap on that and his time down there, talk a little bit about Peru and the playoffs, and what's going on in the Bundesliga. And then finally, we'll wrap up with Professor Matt and a little bit about Liverpool and the upcoming top of the table clash between City and Liverpool. Before we get started, I want to say good evening to my partner in all things podcasting, Stead. How goes it this fine evening?
It's going pretty good. A little post spring break blues, but I know for me personally, I'm hitting the home stretch here. So needless to say, I'm pretty excited to wrap up these last couple of months.
Yeah, that looks like some sort of weird looking massage table behind you. That's the vibe I'm getting there.
Oh no, that's before you got in, that's my bed, because I'm not taking it back upstairs to my bedroom when I'm going to be moving it out of my bedroom again in about 2 months. So I'm like, we'll just leave it down here. We got you. Doing some remodeling around here.
Say no more.
That's what they all say. Los, how goes it?
Wifey's upstairs. Don't talk too loud.
How funny, you have a camera down there and a microphone. Interesting. All right.
There's probably a couple other accessories I don't want to talk about right now.
Hey, man, you see, I got the ottoman over there, man. So it opens and closes.
Well, it took all of 4 minutes for this to get completely off the rails.
I didn't start this time, I swear. I wasn't me. I held back.
It was Los's fault. It was Los's fault this time.
I just asked the question.
It took us 4 minutes to completely lose the plot. We're making progress. We got through a full 4 minutes this time. We're going to shoot for 5. Shooting for 5. Los, how goes it this evening?
Doing well. Personally, on a personal note, we had school-wide testing and only half the school got tested, so it's not so bad.
Mm-hmm. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Carry the 2 plus.
I'm not a math teacher, so I don't understand this. You're the stats teacher, so you should be able to figure that one out.
I just play a math teacher on TV, that's all.
Hey, me and you both, Los. Me and you both.
Gee, how you doing down there? It's got to be getting hot. Beautiful.
Yeah, we got a storm coming through, and it just soaked up a lot of the humidity from the Gulf, and it was quite warm this morning. So woke up about 4:30 this morning to walk the dogs, and was kind of sweating afterwards. So it's right around the corner, and track season's right now, so about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock Central Time, it's about 80 sun blaring down. So after a long day, man, it makes for even longer nights. So, but yeah, besides that, everything's good, and looking forward to talk with Uncle Leo for once. Been a long time, man. Been a long time.
Yeah, me too. But before we do that, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say congratulations to Mrs. Simzak on her Outstanding Dietitian in Maryland Award. That was really outstanding. Nice stuff. Good stuff. Good weekend.
Mrs. Simzak won Maryland Outstanding Dietitian of the Year for her work with the Maryland Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and with the military at the Pentagon. So yes, very proud of her picking up that award yesterday. So we got to welcome in a dear dear. Can I say old? Like Methuselah, old friend of ours. Somebody who's been doing this since they said that since two guys were throwing a rock between them. Uncle Leo, how goes it, sir?
Well, guys, it goes really well, and it's nice to see a lot of the guys that I brought into the business. Mike brought you in back, I think it was about 1997, 1998, you and Will. And Will Lewis is still doing it. He was up there at the Madison Square Garden for the Big East, and he was up there for the NIT. So he's there. And when we look at what's going on with Coach G, I mean, all of a sudden he is an ESPN regular. So, hey, how about that? That's not a deal, is it?
Yeah, and of course you introduced us to our good friend Los as well, who's done some work covering the Army-Navy game. Did we lose Leo Stead?
Was it for Leo?
Yes, Leo seems to have
That's
just
Leo's segment.
Segment right there.
Thanks for joining us, Leo.
Yeah.
That would just about be the most fitting thing ever.
Here he goes. Here he is. Here he is.
All right. Yeah.
Back.
He's back. Yeah.
Are we sure? Do we have proof of life on
Well,
Uncle Leo?
He's in here.
These older people in technology nowadays, you never know, man. No offense, but
When you hit the wrong button, what can I tell you? It's
As you said, G, older people in technology.
yeah.
It's kind of like watching the T-Rex in it's
Toy
kind of like
Story?
watching the raptor in Jurassic Park learn to try and open the door.
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
jitterbug,
Leo,
little
you got
fun.
a new venture. You've been doing this for quite a while. Been covering the Bucks for it's got to be over 20 years now. Covering college basketball, been doing radio, television with ESPN and a number of other outlets, but you've got a new venture now, Amped Up Sports. We are proud to be partnering with you to add our own soccer expertise, as it were, to the Amped Up Sports catalog. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Amped Up Sports and how the Too Many Guys soccer show and fits into this big picture of yours?
Well, we are really trying to get as many diverse groups as possible. And boy, what can't get more diverse than the Too Many Guys soccer show. That and we are looking to get as much content as possible. And again, guys, I've listened to the show before. I've been on the show before, and your content is impeccable. And we are so happy that Amped Up Sports can offer you that platform to increase your viewership and to increase ours as well. And we've only been at it a month, and we're up with almost 800 followers. We've had like 10,000 hits. So we're all excited about where this is going. We're posting videos daily. I had a lot of fun with my April 1st video. And I don't know if you had a chance to check that out, but I said that LeBron James was leaving the NBA. He was going to form his own league as a player commissioner. And
well, that's not an April Fool's joke. That's probably right.
First one, and that's why I put it out there, because people probably said, well, maybe that's going to happen. And then I said, well, the NHL is going to expand into Halifax and Green Bay.
But again, may not be an April Fool's joke. That might happen.
No, not at all. So they got all the way down to the end when they said Bruce Arians is unretiring. He's coming back. And they said, okay, that can't be right.
Well, Leo, we've been covering the Tom Brady situation from a different perspective. So as my recollections, he retired, he wandered the desert of retirement for exactly 40 days before going to the Mecca that was Old Trafford, meeting with Cristiano Ronaldo, and then deciding to resurrect his career 3 days later. Can we safely say now that Cristiano Ronaldo is John the Baptist and Tom Brady really is the second coming?
Well, I was looking for some holy water down here, guys. And, Coach G lives right across from the oldest church, I think, in New Orleans. So, there's no for what can happen. when you get a guy who retires, and then his wife, who makes more money than him, probably said, "Hey, I can't take you around the house too much longer. You got to go back to work." What happened, guys? To be perfectly honest, here's what I think went down. Tom Brady wanted to move on to another team. He wanted to go to either Miami, where he has a good front office, or he wanted to go to San Francisco, which is close to home. And he wanted to try to win a third Super Bowl with a different team. That would not like his legacy needs to be cemented, but that would set it in stone, to say the least. And I think the Buccaneers said, "Hey, Tom, that's great, but whoever you go to, it's going to cost you 3 first-round picks." That's when the conversation started with a little quid pro quo. Okay, I come back, what's going to happen? What's going to change? Well, what do you want to change? I don't think it ever came out of Tom Brady's mouth, "I want Bruce Arians gone." I don't think that ever came out of his mouth, but I got a feeling a lot of the back channels that went around, so you couldn't track it back, as they said in Army, plausible deniability. That's what you get with Independence Day in the movie. So he could deny it because he never said it, but believe me, I got a feeling he had a lot to do with Bruce going out. Now, again, we're talking about a guy who had to wear a heart monitor on the sideline, so we're not in the best of health. So there's a lot of dots to connect, but I'll tell you what, Tampa Bay's happy he's back. That's for sure.
So we're going to talk first up about the most important thing that we've got that happened last week. Gentlemen, it's over. The long national nightmare that has gone on for the previous, 5 years is over. The U.S. qualified for the World Cup. It wasn't the prettiest of campaigns. They end up in third place with on 25 points, ahead of Costa Rica and escaping the Intercontinental Playoff on goal differential. From the 14 games, they took 7 wins, 4 draws, and only 3 losses, which not bad. I mean, losing to Canada on the road and Costa Rica on the road, 2 pretty strong teams at home, is not a bad thing. We were able to win the bulk of our home qualifiers, get to pick up the key points on the road. We blooded some young players. Looks like the potential for an exciting attacking lineup centered primarily around the likes of Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, and Timothy Weah. We found what we think could be an effective midfield with Yunus Musa, Tyler Adams, and Weston McKennie, although we don't know that for sure because they never played together. And surprisingly, our defense actually looked pretty stout throughout. But I got to admit, I never felt comfortable. It wasn't pretty at times. There were a lot of questions, but all's well that ends well. We will be there. And then on Friday, we got thrown into Group B, where we will be up against our former colonial masters in England, a team that hasn't beaten a country that hasn't beaten the U.S. in anything that mattered since the War of 1812. Iran, which will bring up great memories of a 2-1 loss in 1998 in France, and then the winner of the European playoff between Wales, Wales, Scotland, and the Ukraine. So, Los, as we see the groups in front of us, Stead, I want to get your feeling on what you thought about the qualifying campaign in the group that we find ourselves in.
I think that the qualifying campaign was what we could expect. I mean, I don't think you can put much stock in that Costa Rica game when essentially you knew you just didn't have to lose by 6 and you were through. So why risk anything in that respect? Just get out there, play your game, try to make it relatively entertaining for the people who are attending, and then get off the field and get home as soon as possible. I think the U.S. actually made out pretty well. I mean, this is a favorable group. U.S. has been relatively successful against England in the World Cup when you consider history. And, you know, Iran is Iran. I mean, also when you look at the way their national team's been playing throughout the world, and I guess the exposure that we're seeing from our ability to watch games throughout the world, there really isn't like an easy draw. I mean, you look wherever you were going to get picked, you were going to get picked. So I was hoping if you could avoid some of the big boys and you'd be okay, and hopefully not be in a group with two of them, then that would be even better. So I think as long as US knew they were going to be in pot two, they knew they were going to be okay. And that was the most important thing. So, yep, you got the Euro playoff winner. Either of those three teams are not going to be quite as formidable, I think, as possibly being in another group. So, considering that US is clearly building for 2026 and you have a very young team, hey, I think the stars are aligning pretty good that you can get 4 points and possibly get out of this group. It's possible. So I think that as long as they don't, pull a United States and just completely flub it, they have a really, really good chance to at least get to the knockout stages, which I think for this team would be considered a success, especially after what happened 4 years ago.
Leo, the casual fan only really pays attention to the U.S. men's national team when they qualify for the World Cup or when they don't. What are your impressions of this qualifying campaign and where we find ourselves heading into November?
You know what, Mike? When I look at this, I'm thinking, okay, this is a great draw for the United States. They should be able to beat the Euro qualifier. And if they can beat Iran, all you got to do is end up with a draw against England, and you're going to move on. And I think what's going to be really important is how these games are set up. Who is the United States going to open up with? Who do they play? Who do they play third? I think that's an important situation here, because if they get England at the end, I think
we already know that England is our middle game. I believe we open up with the winner of the playoff, and then we have England on Thanksgiving.
The day after.
Black Friday. We have
Black
England.
Friday.
We have Black Friday, we have England, and then we wrap up a couple of days later with Iran. Leo, you're very right in this. This reminds me a lot of the group stage in 2010, where we had our first game against England, which we drew, and then it became a shootout to see who could put more goals past Algeria and Montenegro to win the group. And in that occasion, it actually benefited the US, and we ended up winning the group. Not that we went too far afterwards and lost to Ghana, but you could see something similar shaking out this time around.
Yeah,
go for it, Leo. What was that, Leo?
I do see that happening. It's an interesting thought, because I was kind of surprised the United States ended up in pod 2. I thought they were kind of on the cusp there of going to pod 3, which would have been really bad. So I thought they got a very favorable shot there. And it's not a group of death. That's the nice thing. I mean, Spain and Germany and say one, okay, that's going to be a fun game. So, it's interesting to see how this is going to play out. And you know what? We all talk about hockey being the toughest, championship, the Stanley Cup to win. You got to win 16 games. Well, tell you what, the World Cup's pretty much up there with them, because not only do you have to win, but you're away from home. You're all over the joint. And I can remember down in Brazil, where they were going like thousands of miles from one to the other. It was like, okay, this is crazy. So it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And guys, jump off so you guys can talk in soccer, football, because that's your expertise. We are so happy to have you at Amped Up Sports. We're so happy to get Coach G coming on with his segment with Gus Cattengill on ESPN. And I'll tell you what, fellas, I'm ecstatic, as you can probably tell, that you got with us. And again, it started out as two guys soccer show, and now it's too many guys. But you know what? More the merrier. Gentlemen, have a good show. It's been great talking to you.
Leo, good to see you, man.
Great to see you. Thanks a lot, Uncle Leo. Well,
talk to you later, fellas.
Take care.
Lo, since you came prepared with the PowerPoint today, give us your thoughts on the qualifying campaign and the group in general.
Well, I respect Leo. I know he's looking at the sport from pretty much an outsider's perspective. But I got to say, if Wales wins that Euro playoff, I think Group B becomes one of the tougher groups out there because now England and Wales are both really strong teams, and of course the USA. I'm not discounting Iran; they always can put they can field a good team, but some people are saying that if Wales wins, you're looking at Group B being a group of death. I'm not sure if it's going to be. I don't think there's any real group of death here. Maybe Group C with Mexico, Poland, and Argentina. Group E has a possibility depending on what happens there, but because Spain and Germany are the automatic favorites to move out of the group. What does Japan do? Is it the Japan team that showed up in the last tournament? Because they were pretty good. So we'll see what happens there. But I think the only group that I see that is to me is a runaway that they're going to go through easily is Group G, Brazil. I don't think anything else is etched in stone. I will say Group A, the favorites there are Netherlands and Senegal to go through, only because Qatar has never ever been in this tournament, and I really was hopeful we would get Group A. I was hoping. I think everybody was hoping to be in Group A. So Netherlands.
I'm sorry, Qatar's been around the world though playing, and they definitely had made a step up. Remember, they played pretty well in the Gold Cup over the summer. So
yes,
and they've been bringing in players from all over Africa for the last 20 years to develop some sort of program. I want to say this though about these groups though. If you look at Group H, I feel like Group H is the one group though where it's like I consider that to be the kind of the group of death, considering that I can't see any team actually being particularly dominant right now. I mean, say what you want about Portugal. They have not looked the best in their national setups recently, and they kind of squirted through. So you could easily say they're an injury away from not being quite as competitive as they were. And those other three teams have been able to have relative success in the World Cup. So that looks like a competitive group. That's the one I'm kind of watch is like the group that I don't think Bobby is going to get a lot of attention. That might actually be quite dramatic coming down the stretch.
Interestingly enough, those two groups, the last ones, G and H, are the ones that are going to have the most time of training before they actually have to play a match. When this whole thing gets started. So we'll see what that might affect them in the later stages. Maybe not initially, but
agreed.
But that's something to look at.
Instead, going back off what you said, I actually look at Group F with Belgium, Canada, Morocco, and Croatia, and say that to me is an extremely tight group in how the teams right now are actually matched up. Right,
I can understand that.
It doesn't maybe have the cachet of A with Spain, Germany, and Japan in it. And potentially Costa Rica, as Rob brought up. But I think Belgium, Canada, Belgium, we've talked about the last hurrah for the golden generation, which has kind of underperformed to this point in time. A Croatia team who were the beaten finalists in the last World Cup. An older team, but as long as you still got Luka Modric out there and he doesn't look like he's stepping down, they still have some pretty solid players. And then, of course, Morocco's got a fair few players who play in Europe. They've got some good guys. Achraf Hakimi comes to mind immediately. And I believe, doesn't Ziyech also play for Morocco? Or is he Algerian? But I know Hakimi is Moroccan. They've got some players. And then Canada. Look, they got a little bit messed over because of how low they started in the FIFA World Rankings going into this qualifying cycle, and just basically were never going to be able to get up to a seed that actually measured up to the team that they are. This is a team that, by and large, cruised through CONCACAF qualifying. And as Rob will remind us, they did a lot of that. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, Ziyech does, or Armstead, Ziyech does play for, in between Ziyech and Hakimi, they got some solid players from Morocco.
Watch out for Canada.
And watch out for Canada.
Watch out for Canada.
Canada won CONCACAF.
Yeah, right.
Canada won CONCACAF.
Look at G. I'm telling you, G. Watch out for Canada. I think they're going to make some serious noise this World Cup.
Remember, though, they played so much of qualifying without their best player, Alphonso Davies, out for the vast majority of qualifying with the myocarditis. I mean, he just now getting back into something that resembles game shape for Bayern Munich, having missed that, and they still managed to walk. That's a formidable attack with Kyle Larin and Jonathan David, who I think Jonathan David's one of those guys who's going to use this World Cup platform to get himself a pretty big move from Belgium to another team in January. Kyle Larin's another one, and Buchanan, who Rob just brought to my attention.
I'd like to point out Kyle Larin used to play for the Orlando City. Just like
he also used to play for the U.S. And geez, could we use a striker like Kyle Larin right now?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, former Orlando City player. And Los, when you talk about Kyle Larin being a former Orlando City player, we also need to bring up the fact that divorce did not go amicably at all with his move to Turkey. And we had a potential sort of like Lou Brock type situation with him threatening to challenge the contracts and the sell-on clauses, believing that he was out of a deal when and MLS arguing that he wasn't. Before we get on to our good friend Rob, who just joined us, I want to get G's take on all things qualifying and the U.S.
All right. Well, I think
here it goes.
Just weak in general. And I think Canada right now, I won't say it's their golden kind of generation, but, getting that kind of European, that international flair under their belts, you can see it's actually really paying off for them, where we've had it for such a long time and we're kind of just squeaking in. Like we lost 2-0 and we squeaked in with a goal difference. I don't know. I just look at CONCACAF up and down and it's just weak. Even Mexico is they're like kind of rebuilding right now. They have a lot of injuries. We've had injuries and we, again, squeaked in. I don't know if that's a good thing for U.S. that we squeaked in with all the kind of the upsy-turvies, with the Winston incident being, kicked off the team to kind of welcome back. Now he's injured. Pulisic is injured, blah, blah, blah. And he still squeaked in. So I don't know if that's a good thing for U.S., but I just think it's just how weak CONCACAF. Now, Los made a good point about Group B being a group of death. I would say it's a group of death for the second place. I think England will just wipe. It'll be 3-0. I think they'll get all 9 points. Then after that, it's kind of a coin flip between, you can say, Wales, Scotland, U.S., and even Iran. Iran can just quickly sneak in a 1-0 goal against the United States. You just never know. It is the World Cup. It is their backyard and everything. So they're used to playing in those kind of situations in the atmosphere where we're not. So United States will probably, I would say, maybe win 0, tie 1, and lose 2. I think we're not there competing as a whole team against any European team because we just don't have those kind of players. Matt Seven looks all right. He looked like he had kind of loose hands against Costa Rica. Any kind of European team, they're just going to put those balls in the back of the net. And Costa Rica did one time, but it's going to cost us more and more. Our defense, we don't have any really big names, and we're going against some superstar forwards and some attacking midfielders where I really don't think we can match up. So we'll see. We'll see what's happened, and I'll root for USA when I can. And besides that, we'll do the old rah-rah anti-USA chant. So,
Rob, this is
I think, you got the USA to root for because you don't have your other team, Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah, after winning the Euros, it's on a major, international trophy. I don't know what, the United States can do. they're just like, screw it. Let other teams get a little piece of the pie. So we're good. A little piece of pie. So
Right.
it is what it
Piece
is.
of the pie.
I feel a special coming on before the World Cup when we do our preview. We're going to find a team for G to actually root for, since he doesn't want to root for the U.S.
It's hard
and
to,
he can't root for it. He can't root for Italy. So remember how we tried to get London Sean an MLS team? By the way, that went over great because he picked Toronto FC and they finished last. So we'll go through and we'll put together a speed dating for G to find a World Cup team. He needs a date for the World Cup.
So maybe I mean, you're in New Orleans now. Okay, that's France. There's
Spain.
Well, more France, but you could. I mean, they're defending champions. But if you want to root for Spain, that's fine because I'll be pulling for them too. So
yeah, but it's so easy to hop on the France bandwagon. Like they're just solid team right now. Like it's an easy one. So we'll try to do another team, maybe a dark horse kind of team. But yeah, France is too simple.
We'll figure it out for him. All right, Rob, you were down there. We're going to touch on we're going to touch on Peru a little bit later. But you were down there for that last game in Costa Rica. It didn't quite go how we wanted it to. But they walked off. They're going to the tournament. They qualified automatically. You're the guy who keeps the running roster of who you think's going to be on the plane. Give us your impressions of this cycle and how you think we stack up in the group right now.
Well, first of all, I don't know why G has that shirt on if he's going to be rooting against the U.S. I mean, I feel like it's burning him up inside to wear that shirt right now.
Yeah, right? Burning Man's in California. Come on.
Yeah, so feel free to take it off and put on the shirt of the team that did not qualify.
Mike said I'm covering it, so why not act the part?
But so the qualifying cycle, you got to remember. So when the U.S. has made the World Cup the past few times, nobody remembers qualifying. They just remembered being in the qualifiers. I mean, being in the World Cup. We remember them in the World Cup. And so did it go great? No. But the goal was to make the World Cup, especially after, the disaster 2018. So Greg Berhalter did that with a totally complete generational change. The youngest team in qualifying. And if they stick around and add 4 more years, they would still be the youngest team in qualifying. That's how young all these kids are. So people want to knock CONCACAF because it's like, it's not Europe, it's not UEFA, it's not even Africa, right? It is difficult. It is insanely hard. It is. I've been there. I've seen it. It's insane. Like the conditions, the crowd, the non-manicure stadiums that UEFA teams play on all the time. There's none of that exists, except maybe in the US. Didn't even exist in Canada. All right. The goal was to qualify, and that's what he did. And that's and you know what? I'm happy we qualified. Did it come pretty? No. Do I have questions about Zach Steffen? Yes, I definitely do. He definitely not the shot stopper that frostbitten Matt Turner is, so I do have questions, but you gotta remember, like, this team is going to age a lot in experience in the next 6 months or 8 months, whatever it is, 6 months, whatever it is, I forget. But they're gonna get better. They're gonna get some players back. They're gonna get Weston back. They're gonna get Brendan Aronson back. You're gonna see a couple. You're gonna get Serginho Dest back. You're gonna get some of these players that maybe are not even in the picture. A surprise is going to make this roster, like a Paxton Pomacall from FC Dallas. So I'm happy the U.S. Is in it. Now, as far as the group goes, all y'all England fans who love the EPL, what happened in 2010? Because I remember the certain headline that the Sun, that trash rag, called the group that they were in easy. And what happened? The U.S. drew England. And who advanced out of the group?
England and the U.S.
Yeah.
U.S. won the group.
U.S. won the group. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's number one. Number two, what happened to England in 2014? Did they advance out of the group?
No.
All right. So And also, and what happened to Costa Rica in 2014? They went all the way to the quarters, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened to, I mean, England has progressively gotten stronger in tournament play under Gareth Southgate.
Except that goalkeeper.
And I agree. You know what happened in UA in the Euros? You know, they went all the way, you know, almost all the way, and you know they stunk it up at the very last minutes. And that's fine. I get that, but to underestimate CONCACAF teams at your own peril, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. Especially if Costa Rica makes a playoff, which I fully expect them to make it. Keylor Navas is a goalkeeping god. All right, he's going to keep Costa Rica in each of these games, and you know this is not Costa Rica that started the qualifier. So Costa Rica, for example, they were very old, aging. You know, like almost to the point of a wheelchair. It was bad. Brian Ruiz was being propped up, you know, like Weekend at Bernie's. It was bad. But all of a sudden, and they were terrible. They had a crazy run. They had to switch really quickly in the middle of the qualifier to a younger squad, and it got them to the playoff by miracle, you know. And so I think they can still do it. I think they can do well. I think Mexico can do well. I feel like as a fan of the U.S. And a fan of the Confederation, I feel like only I can diss Mexico. None of y'all UEFA lovers can diss Mexico. You know, they're my friend and they're my family. All right, I diss them. All right, they're trash, but y'all respect Mexico. Okay, so
hey, I'm Hispanic. We respect Mexico.
Yeah,
enough.
Yeah, enough, right? Yeah, exactly. So look, I'm feeling confident. I think they're gonna make it out the group. It's not going to be easy. Iran's really good because you know they have a couple players that actually play in big leagues, but they have the top striker plays in Bayern Leverkusen. You know, he came over from Zenit, I believe. So that's no easy game. You know, if Ukraine makes it somehow, you know, the US is going to be like, you know, the underdog in that, just simply for the fact that like the crowd would be cheering for Ukraine. If it's Scotland, Scotland might be an easy win only because they're going to be too worried about playing
Careful.
England.
Campers came on.
He saw him.
Don't worry.
I saw
Scotland's
you, Cam.
injured too. They're all injured anyway.
But
but it's a long time in between now and November.
But you know what? They're going to be so worried about playing England.
He'll figure out a way to get hurt again.
They're going to be so worried about playing England. They're going to be like, who is this USC we're playing? We're worried about the English. All right, we don't care about that. We want to play the English. That's it. Right. So, and if it's Wales,
one thing I think you're missing is normally this is in the summertime when they're off season. This is right in the middle of their season. Like you really don't know who's going to be injured in September, October. Like you really don't know anything right now.
No.
So we can say right now that England's got a little chip on their shoulder. They want to prove that they should have won Euros in the summertime. But to say, who's going to win, you really don't know. United States, one game for an ankle to be broken, and that just pulls the correct.
I'm sorry, Los made a great point. I'm sorry, Robbie made a great point too. You're right. Once qualifying's over, nobody cares. It's over. Qualifying is done. So whatever happened in the qualifying stages, that is completely on the back burner. If you win on goal differential, great. Once you're in, none of it matters anymore. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, the qualifying campaigns are what qualifying campaigns are. But part of the fun of a World Cup draw is getting to put up our hot takes in immediate reaction to it. Right. So we'll go out with, the US qualified. At first blush, we feel a little bit confident, but it's a long time in between now and November. We don't know who's going to be on the airplane going quite yet. A mix of who could get hot, who could not, who's hurt, who's suspended, who's not, right? There's a lot of things to happen in between now and then. So we're going to switch gears real quick. I know
before we switch gears, because you're still talking World Cup, I did want to say one more thing about the World Cup, and that's, what is this thing, man? Come on.
That's a Laib. Did you not
So-
watch the little YouTube video about Laib? I watched
Yeah, I
it.
saw the whole history, and we were there from the beginning, and blah blah blah, and the feeling you feel, that's us, you know, and we've been there. And I'm like, oh.
So for those of you listening, as opposed to watching, Los just put up a picture of Laib, who I guess is the Cutter mascot, who looks like a slightly Arab version of Casper the Friendly Ghost
Right.
kicking a soccer ball.
That's where the friendly footy goes.
No, it's the ghost of a migrant worker. That's what it is.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
The ghost of a migrant worker. I mean,
built the stadium.
All I can say is I believe it's supposed to represent a traditional Arabian Peninsula headdress,
Yes.
kicking a soccer ball, and
and floating around like a stingray.
Yeah. So if you're from Tampa Bay and you love Qatar and you love the Rays, this is the World Cup for you, right here.
From Tampa.
I don't even know where to begin with this.
Well, Mike, the best thing about the video, if you pay close attention, you can see a little animation of Striker, the 94 World Cup mascot.
You know, I was looking. Where'd you see him? I didn't see him.
When they were walking like towards the camera on the sidewalk, he was in the background. Yeah, I'll send screenshots. I took them and I put them on the Discord or whatever. Because I was like, oh my God, the Striker. Yay.
I still have the draw on my DVD, so I'll go ahead and check it out later. Look on the sidewalk again.
All right. So,
anyway, I just wanted to bring that up.
So before I know that y'all got to run, you've had a really long day, but before you go, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about your beloved Arsenal, who unceremoniously, if would be putting it slightly mildly, went down on yesterday to Palace 3-0 at Selhurst Park. Of course, Crystal Palace, London derbies, Selhurst Park, tough place to play. It does just open up that crack with that door crack for the likes of Spurs, who we'll get on to momentarily, West Ham and United to creep back into that top four. We talked earlier. I asked you whether or not you'd rather have the games in hand or the points on the board. At the time, you had the points and the games in hand, but these games in hand haven't exactly gone the way that you wanted it to. What is your feeling about that game and where Arsenal sit right now?
To be honest, kind of knew we're going to lose. It's just one of those games that you just kind of look like everything's going right. There's got to be a hiccup along the way. And I really felt this was the hiccup. Wasn't surprised that we looked like crap defensively on set plays. Our offense hits the post a couple of times. We don't really have an offense, but just one of those games that you just kind of knew it wasn't our time. We're looking at the big picture of where we were beginning of the season, where we were last couple of seasons. This is still a victory right now. We're still looking good. We still are in the top 4, top 5. We're still in the Euro conference. We're still in the UEFA conference, the Championship League. We're in all those conversations right now where we weren't in the previous years. And the only previous years is, what the hell is wrong with us? Why aren't we better than them? Now we're right there. So we got to get a hiccup. There's still the young team that is going to go through these kind of woes. So how do we rebound? That's probably the biggest question, is how does Arteta kind of reset the ship, saying, all right, we're done, let's move on, kind of thing. We have bigger games coming up ahead that, we're going to play competition that's more at our level, like Tottenham, West Ham. You got Chelsea still coming up, and Chelsea's kind of right now, where they might kind of flounder, where it gives us an opportunity for even Tottenham kind of rise up a little bit. So I can't complain. Again, beginning of the season, it was a shock to all of us. But where we came from and what the big picture, where Arteta's taken us, there's a couple more pieces that we need to maintain that top 4 for the next couple of years. But to see the growth and see where we are right now, I got no problem. So again, my biggest thing is, how do we respond? How does the Gunners respond to the loss? And that's the only big question right now.
All right, man. Well, I know that you've had a long day, so we're going to get you out and let you run and get something to eat and relax a little bit. But thanks for coming on and joining us.
Thanks for coming on, G.
Guys, take care. I appreciate it. Always good times. Go Celtic.
we're going to go across North London. Don't you love it, Los, when you get the last word on this on North London matters?
Wow,
Well,
thanks for skipping me. I appreciate that. Okay,
that's right. There's another gooner in the room here. Oh, he just left.
I was gonna let you think that you got the last word, and then I Stead.
Oh yeah, right,
I actually did know what I was doing.
Okay, so
Stead's hurt. Now,
I think
yes, Stead, I did not forget you. I was going to get to you momentarily because I know that these guys actually have, other things to do.
Yes,
I was trying
let
to
Los go so I can scorch Earth's team.
Yes.
Well, let me tell you, the strength of schedule, I think, is going to be the most telling this coming month. Or we got like a month and a half left, maybe month and a week left of games. And the strength of schedule, I think, is in favor of Spurs. We got a couple of tough matches. We got Leicester and Liverpool and Arsenal. Those are the biggest names. Well, we've got Aston Villa this weekend, but the rest are, it's Brighton, Brentford, and Burnley and Norwich City. With our team firing on all cylinders, those games should be, on paper, they should be good results for us. But again, they don't play games on paper. They play the games on the field. So we got to show up. We got to play. We have the potential to make a good run here at the end and qualify for Europe. And that's where we see ourselves now. The biggest thing that I think has been the difference is the January bringing on of Kulusevski up front from Juve and Betancourt also from Juve. Those two guys by themselves have single-handedly changed the look of the midfield and the front for Spurs. It is amazing what they have done. It's fun to watch them. It really is. It's really something else. So hopefully we make the run like I anticipate that we make the run and win the games we should here in this last stretch. And then it turns out that perhaps maybe May 12th might end up being a playoff game for the UEFA Champions League, right, between Arsenal and Spurs.
Wouldn't that be fun? All right,
that'd be exciting.
So we want to thank you for coming on, joining us, talking about a little bit about the U.S. men's national team, the World Cup, and Laib. Yes, that's what yes.
I know they were going to thank me for that.
I'm not sure I'm going to thank you for it. I'm not sure that thanks is the word that I'm coming for.
Dude, it's growing on me. It's growing on me. I'm starting to like Laib. I'm starting to like it.
It's still glorified. It's a handkerchief kicking a soccer ball. I'm gonna need y'all to be better.
Get one for me too, Rob.
yeah, guys. So I'm going to the World Cup in Qatar, and I will grab some plush Laibs. All right, and I will
plush handkerchief. It's a handkerchief.
Hey, I'll put it over my shoulder like a parrot.
That might actually be something I might want to get because it's just so weird looking. It's just,
all right. Look.
I was going to say I've got mine here already. I've already.
There you go. He's right there. Yeah. Cam's already got him.
Cam's already got plush Laib. He's chilling.
I can't get so many. I need to go through global entry when I come back, and I don't need to be market selling stuff through customs. But no, I'll grab a bunch for the show just for the gag. It'll be hilarious.
They're going to ask him, why does he have 19 handkerchiefs with soccer balls attached to it?
Hey, I have a Dava Flaka from Russia, so I'll definitely get another one.
All right, guys, got to roll.
Thanks, Los. Good to see you, brother.
Back.
So. Yes, Stead, I did not forget about you.
I know.
Relationships. Before we get to Celtic Cam and talk a little bit about the land up north, yes, Stead, give us your impressions on where Arsenal are and the loss, what that loss yesterday means.
I actually quite agree with G, though. I had the same feeling. I was like, I don't think we're going to win this game. I mean, playing against Selhurst Park is easy at any time, especially for a London derby, but also you can't deny that Crystal Palace is playing much improved ball over the last few months. They seem to get better and better every week. And I think, again, that just applauds the work that Vieira has done. The worst thing about that loss for Arsenal was to hear the number of Arsenal fans who are now clamoring for Vieira to take over the club, which is ridiculous when you consider that Arteta has still won, I think, 10 of his last 14 games. And I think if you told me that Arteta was had that kind of a run at the beginning of the year and we'd be in 5th place, I would take it, 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. So that's probably the worst part about this loss. The ball is still in Arsenal's court. Arsenal still is in control of their own destiny. If they're able to hold serve, Arsenal will go through. So, and go through to the top 4. Again, though, as Lo said, which is a very good point, you got to play the games, you got to win the games you play. And Arsenal's schedule is not the easiest. You still have Chelsea, you have Man U, you have West Ham, you have Spurs. And, I will say this, Brighton seems to play Arsenal well for some reason. I don't know why, but they do. So that's another game. Like I mean, we've all been chatting, saying that this game this Saturday is actually very, very important. Very important. I think if Arsenal lose or even draw this game, that's going to spell potential doom for this season. But I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that we have been punching above our weight for the past couple of months, and it's been very exciting and very enjoyable to watch. But this team still has a lot of work to do. Don't forget about what we were saying earlier in the year with the number of transfer windows we still need in order to be consistently competing for top 4. I still think we need 2 more transfer windows. Arsenal have $100 million worth of players out on loan right now. So you have some work to do to try to get the squad to be where you want it to be. But please, please, please don't make the mistake that if you fire Arteta and bring in Vieira and have him start this project all over again, that you're suddenly going to be successful, because you will not. So stick to what you're doing. Stick to your guns. If Arsenal finish 5th this year, I will be happy. I will be happy with a 5th place finish this year, especially considering how the last couple of seasons have gone, and with the relative what we thought looked like quite a fiasco with the amount of money they were spending the last probably couple transfer windows. So I think what looks even worse is the fact that Arsenal's lost 2 of their last 3. That's what looks bad. But you got to consider one of those were to Liverpool, and Liverpool was out for blood, and you knew that there's no team that was going to beat them that last time they played, considering that they're chomping at Man City's boots right now.
Before we get on to Scotland, Cam, you had a question for Stead.
Yeah, I had a question. So of course it's going to be about my boy Kieran Tierney. I just wondered how much of an impact, because it looks like he's going to be out for a while for surgery due to a training injury. So I just had a question, how big of an impact do you think it's going to have on Arsenal's upcoming games not having him in there, and who do you think is going to be replacing him?
On paper, it looks like it's going to have a big impact, but I can't say it does because he's been hurt most of the year anyway. Kieran Tierney has yet to produce a consistent run of games for Arsenal since he's been signed, and it's a problem. And Arsenal's physio has come up into question quite a bit in the last few years of Wenger's tenure there. And there's an Arsenal logo where it's not the cannon, it's a wheelchair, and it's actually quite funny. But it's been, it's not good. Who wants to see Kieran Tierney be injured? But I don't actually think it's going to be that impactful, mainly because he hasn't played consistently for Arsenal. So it's, of course we want him on the field. The guy is a world-class left back. You want him there, but I think if anything, it's probably worse for Scotland than it is for Arsenal for him not to be there. And who's going to take his place? They brought in Nuno Tavares, who is not quite as defensive minded as one would hope. But you think if you get Tomiyasu in there again, because I think he's been injured as well, if you get Tomiyasu back, which you can transfer to a back 3 so he can run up and down the field a little bit more, I think he'll be okay. So I think if anything, Kieran Tierney is a very, 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 very good player, a very likable player, a player that's respected by all the guys in the squad. He's already a vice captain, but on the field, I think they should be able to get by just fine without him, which I think if anybody should be worried right now, it should be Kieran Tierney. He could easily lose his spot in the starting 11, which would be not good for him. But hopefully he's on the mend. But we'll see. Maybe he'll get back in September, and hopefully Scotland will be able to get through and qualify, and then he'll be able to suit up this fall. So I don't know. It's a tough ask. He's a definitely good player. So hopefully he can mend quickly. But I hope he doesn't turn into Jack Wilshere. I really do.
Yeah, we all do. Mm-hmm. All right, Cam. Have you sobered up yet?
Almost there.
Bro, what a game. What a game.
Great.
I'm sorry.
Great
That's
football.
that's one of the best games I've seen in years.
Yeah.
I was on the edge of my seat, just like, holy shit, what is going on here? I couldn't believe it. Those players were dead at the end of that game. What a game.
Yeah.
So of course we're talking about Sunday's Old Firm derby, which was the third of the season. Celtic this time went to Ibrox and walked out 2-1 winners, with Cameron Carter-Vickers netting a winner. I got to say, for me, Stead, I second your motion. I felt like they left everything out on the field. I know that Cameron Carter-Vickers took a little bit to get into the game, but for me, he was the man of the match. He was just a rock, heading everything out, keeping that lead and snatching that goal, which turned out to be the winner. Rangers get an early one, but Celtic able to come back, get the goals, and walk off victorious. This was not the sort of champagne stuff that we saw in the February derby at Celtic Park, but I wouldn't expect it to be, given we played that game, and this was a game that was being played at Ibrox, not at Celtic Park. I agree with you. That was Stead. It was amazing. Just the sheer will. Those guys left everything. Everybody who played left it all out on the pitch. The end result sees Celtic now take a 6-point lead with 6 games to go. Heading into the split at the top of the table, they would need, due to their superior goal difference, they would need to drop 7 points, which they haven't dropped 7 points in 5 months. So that and the Champions League, likely Champions League group spot, the title looks like it's headed back with that likely Champions League group spot back to Celtic Park. Give us your thoughts, your reactions, your feelings, your emotions. Talk to us, Cam. Talk to us.
Yeah, no, I really do want to echo from both sides. I think you guys are absolutely on point. That game was phenomenal. Everybody was just given everything there. I will say it started off a little shaky, when Aaron Ramsey put that first one in. Celtic were on the back foot for at least probably about 10 minutes until Rogic scored. And then you kind of saw people getting, charged up, working together. That partnership between Cameron Carter-Vickers and Starfelt, I think, proved to be a really significant part of that game. I feel like it's not often in the Glasgow Derby where you can say that, the 2 center backs for Celtic really kind of held things together. But I think in this case, they really, really did. I think they formed a fantastic partnership. The number of players from both sides I could really call out. Aaron Ramsey surprised me, with how poor his fitness has been since he's been picked up. And he was a pretty phenomenal part for them. He had had a goal, a number of chances in the game. So I was, it's rare that I'll give him, Rangers player credit, but I have to give him credit for how he played. In terms of, the guys we were working with, McGregor, oh my gosh, man, that is captain material right there. He just proved the point how much of a captain he was. Every single thing he did. I think it was Rogic's goal. How he powered through 3 or 4 different defenders to make that goal happen. Joe Hart. Again, I can't talk highly enough about him. Absolutely fantastic. Again, you can tell he's a true born leader at the back there. An absolutely fantastic game. Again, it's the Glasgow Derby, so there were some unfortunate incidents that occurred. Glass bottles being thrown onto the pitch. A member of the Celtic backroom staff got glassed, had to require medical attention. So again, seeing that stuff that we don't like in football, but is unfortunately part of the natural environment of the Glasgow Derby. But overall, I think you guys have echoed it. Just watching just watching that game turn around after 10 minutes, 15 minutes for Celtic, and just see them take control of that game. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of Big Ange and what he's done with the team. I really can't. And I think, if we do get that Champions League group spot, I think we're really going to see Ange come into his own with Europe. I know he's struggled this season so far, but I think he's finally, he's got a rhythm and a flow now. He's got a plan together. So I'm excited to see that. And then, just overall in football, in terms of the split, I know how much you guys love the split, the weirdest thing in football in the world. I think we're going to see some interesting games coming up, in the near future. The big one is Ross County. Ross County plays, let's see here, Aberdeen, who are sitting below them. If they can beat Aberdeen and Hibs loses to Hearts, that's a big switch right there. Hibs will be in the bottom six and Ross County will be in the top six, which I don't remember the last time Ross County was in the top six of the split. And I don't remember the last time Hibs was in the bottom six of the split. So, there's a lot. I mean, there's few and far in terms of points down in that area, but I think that's where we could really see some movement coming into the split is Ross County jumping over Hibs to make that final six.
So we've seen the split change on a daily basis. I believe is it one more game left before the split? Yes.
Yeah, there's one more. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So next Monday when we speak, we'll know. Looking back at this team that Celtic have put together, we're going into the tail end of the season. It's been a learning process for Ange, probably not as successful in Europe as they would have liked to have been. Definitely doing well in the league. We've talked about the fact that he's recruited well. I think one of the things that we need to talk about is the fact that I don't think that they've had their strongest team. Kyogo's been out since, I don't know when the last time he played was. We've talked about, how are they going to be able to keep the core of this team together? I mean, Joe Hart has had a renaissance. Is he going to be one that could move on? Would a Premier League team take a flyer on him after he's put his career back together? We know that a couple of the guys are loan signees, most notably for us, Cameron Carter-Vickers. Where are the deals? Are the deals being made to keep this team together? Because you feel like if they can stay together, or the core of it can stay together for another year, this is a team that can grow. Has grown into itself and could continue to grow. And I think actually could make some noise in one of the European competitions next year.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a concern. I mean, we kind of have the catch-22 here of when you have a loan signing that performs so well, the team that has him at that point wants to keep him, but then the team that's loaned him out says, oh, he's kind of grown into his prime, we want him back. So I think as you picked up on, Cameron Carter-Vickers and Jota, both being phenomenal players, key players this season. They're both here on loan. And I from what I remember, neither technically has an option to buy. I think there is an option to buy for both of them. But, I think after what we've seen with Cameron Carter-Vickers and Jota, I think those are two key people we need to sign. One thing I will say, I think with Ange coming on and the staff he's brought, the board is definitely more willing to splash some cash for quality players. And I think if the board recognizes that, these are two players that are going to be essential for success in Europe, it's worth that money. I mean, money in Europe comparative to domestic league is, it's exponentially better. So, I'm hoping that the board realizes this, is willing to take a chance on these players. I mean, Joe Hart, I really hope he stays. I think if he was to go down south again, I have a fear he would. I mean, there's a lot of good goalies in England right now, especially in some of the smaller teams even. I have a fear that he would become a backup goalie again, even though he's performed so well in domestic competition in Scotland. And even when we were in Europe, we didn't do great as a team, but Joe Hart was still, half decent in Europe. So, as I say, I think he's got that leader mentality, and I'm really hoping that, we are able to keep him. I mean, there's a number of players. I mean, Maeda, Rio Tate, like, these guys are making noise. People see this. So I'm really hoping that, this coming season is not going to be a season where we're looking to make profit, but we're looking to make progress.
So we know that Scotland did not play in the playoffs this week because they're due to play Ukraine in June. We assume that is actually still going to happen, but they were part of the draw. They were ushered into Group B, where potentially they would be playing, if they qualified, they would be playing the US, England, and Iran. We already heard some shade thrown at Scotland earlier in the show about Scotland being an easy team.
You get used to it.
I want to get the Scottish reaction to this draw. How do y'all feel about this group should you get through to play in World Cup in November?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, it's not the easiest group. We've got, I mean, thankfully, we've got a team like England where, Scotland gets so fired up. We kind of have, I wouldn't say an advantage, but an edge there with that. In terms of the US, that's going to be a very difficult game. I actually don't remember the last time Scotland, if they've even ever played the US in a qualifier. And then Iran, even, I mean, that's a decent team there too. So I mean, it's not exactly the group of death for Scotland, but it's going to be difficult. I'll be the first one to say it is going to be difficult, especially from what we were talking about earlier with Kieran Tierney. That's a big it's going to be a big issue. On that left side, Kieran Tierney's a fantastic wing back, and he really does, especially for Scotland, help produce a lot of the kind of final third action for Scotland. So, I'm hopeful. Every Scotsman, everyone in Scotland is hopeful that we have a good run at the World Cup this year. It's not the easiest group. I think, from what I was looking at, I think Group B has essentially the best standings in terms of FIFA, nations. Something like that.
Yeah, but that's because we've actually got a de facto pot 3 team in there in Wales, which was drawn in as pot 4.
Okay.
So the average standing is a little bit higher, but we also don't really put a lot of stock in.
Sure.
Because it's not based on current form or performance. It's based on, it's based on whatever permutations they have. To answer your question, the US and Scotland have never played in they have played in friendlies, but they've never played in an official competitive match.
Wow.
At the World Cup. So that would be the first. It looks like the US has won twice, Scotland's won 3, and there's been 3 draws of the 8 games that they have played. The most recent one being a 0-0 draw in 2013 in a friendly.
Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have to explain to you guys how good the US team is right now and how we've seen them in the past 5 years. So I think that is going to be a really difficult game. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think it's going to be really, really exciting. I honestly, it could be close to the England-Scotland game. I really do think in terms of excitement. It's a very exciting group. I'm not disappointed with the types of games I think I'm going to see. I'll just be disappointed if we don't make it through.
One thing that we will say though is Rob will correct me if I'm wrong. I do not believe the US has ever beaten a European team in the World Cup.
Wow.
I think they beat England a long time ago.
Okay, not in the modern World Cup. Yes, they beat England in 1950.
Yes, Mike has the jersey.
Yeah, I do have the jersey. I do have the jersey, right? Yeah, they beat England, but I mean, outside of that,
I don't think they have. They've had a few draws, and that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, all of our wins in the World Cup since we returned in the 90s have all been against either African were Asian teams.
And one win against Mexico.
Wait. Okay, got it.
U.S.
Okay.
has only won, I believe, in its history, 8 games in the World Cup. I think that's it.
None
That's
of them
all
have
they've
been
ever
against.
won.
None of them
been
have
against
been.
England.
All right, I have. This is my Tony Reality Stat Boy segment here. So the U.S. has beaten Portugal in 2002.
Oh, how could I forget that one? 1-0.
Oh yeah, that was
that game was 3-2. O'Brien, Costa own goal, and then Brian McBride scored.
And U.S. should have beat Portugal again until Ronaldo hit that cross, and they drew 3-3, I think. Or
Ronaldo was doing nothing that whole game.
He did
the whole game. He was invincible. You know, he had the whole ankle issue, I think, coming into the World Cup.
He was massively hurt.
Yeah,
and then he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna let it up. Poor DeMarcus Beasley just got
130
showed
pounds
up.
of him.
What a perfect cross to Eder for the goal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like it was. I think it was the last kick of the game. Honestly.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. All right. So, thanks for that, Tony Reale, also known as Bayern Rob. But all right, Cam, thanks a lot for coming on and joining us. We'll get back in touch with you when this next week, and we'll finalize that thing that we have been waiting for since the beginning of the season, the split. All right. As always, my friend, thanks for giving us the haps from the land of enchantment that is Scotland.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great evening.
All right. And we're going to turn around instead and bring in our good friend, Stat Boy, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We've already covered the U.S. What we haven't talked about, Rob, is Peru, who find themselves also in contention to make it to the World Cup. And it would be this consecutive World Cups. Now, they made their first one a couple of years ago, but consecutive World Cups.
Yeah, it's you know, it was like 32 years, I believe, or whatever it was. The last World Cup was in 82. Then it waited then I was born in 83. And then they didn't make a World Cup again until 2018. They won it. They went into the World Cup off the playoff, beating New Zealand in a home and home. So now the last qualifier cycle, they had 2 matches away to Uruguay and at home to Paraguay. They had a great shot to qualify right off the bat, but they lose to Uruguay on the road, and then they beat Paraguay at home 2-0. Beautiful goals, by the way, from Yoshimura Yotun, for example. It's fantastic. And then Lapadula, the half, or do we call him Lapa Dios, because he was blessed by Pope Francis. He scored a goal as well. But poor Peru in the playoff again, you know, making us Peruvians pay tons of money for a 1-game playoff to go support La Selección. And they have to do it potentially against Australia. It's going to be the winner of Australia versus the UAE.
Mm-hmm.
Probably will be Australia. They are a better team. They have more experience. And then poor Peru is going to be like 2018 all over again, because Peru played and beat Australia in the group stage of the 2018 World Cup. And they have to beat Australia again in a 1-game playoff in order to get the right to play France, who they also played in 2018, Denmark, who they also played in 2018, and I believe Tunisia. Is that right? Yeah, Tunisia. So yeah, man, it's like deja vu all over again. I mean, I was looking forward to like not having to see Pogba and N'Golo Kante again, and then now Christian Richardson. Erickson. Sorry, is back. So I'm just like, you know, like I want a different team, but it is what it is. What are you gonna do?
Well, again, though, when you think of the teams that they had to get over and who they prevented from qualifying in the form of Chile and Colombia.
Yeah, that's me cheering, by the way. Yeah, if you're for the YouTubers, we hate Chile and the good old Cafeteros of Colombia with one-footed hypocrite James Rodriguez did not qualify. Thank goodness. So there you go. All right, continue on, Mike. I had to get that out.
Yeah. So again, you have some surprise teams. Certainly, even Ecuador making it this time around is a bit of a surprise. They're a smaller nation that doesn't have a rich soccer history, much like Peru doesn't. But it shows you what a slog CONMEBOL qualifying is, and just how important it is to continue to develop players. I think, we look back at Uruguay, who have managed to continue to go on, and this is, the Uruguayan cycle began is now going into its 12th year. This is the one that started in 2010 when they made it, I believe, to the quarterfinals or the semifinals with a very, very young Luis Suarez and a very, very old Diego Forlan. Now you've got a very, very old Luis Suarez still playing.
Cavani, Godin, all those
yeah,
players. Still got one last ride.
Yeah, again, one last ride. A Chilean team that was so good for so many years, but just was unable to continue to develop the talent that they had, with the likes of Alexis Sanchez and
Vidal,
Arturo Vidal.
Drunk Vidal to him. So.
Yeah. And so we've seen them fall off. Colombia had that renaissance when James Rodriguez was the darling of the entire tournament, and they qualified for back-to-back, and now no mas to them either. So it's a 3-year process to get through, and so full credit to Peru for even getting into the playoffs, and they did so at the expense of 2 of your arch rivals.
And the thing is, there's no Paulo Guerrero. He's being he's like up there, and he's like 38. No Jefferson Farfan. This team is in Peru is full of just like journeymen or like people playing domestic leagues or South America. Like, they're just like nobody. There really is like no star player, and which is probably what makes this squad even more special. Is that Ricardo Gareca, from Argentina, who's been a manager the last couple cycles. He had to do a major transformation midway because they were just doing poorly to start off the qualifier, and then it turned it on. They got 3 points, I believe, in Colombia, which is huge because Peru never wins in Colombia. And then they needed to really to handle business versus Paraguay, which is, Peru is known to be in situations and then pretty much stink up the joint when the pressure folds. But the one great thing about Ricardo Gareca, he's a man of patience. This Peru team gets a little excited when things are going wrong, and he will temper down the emotions. He's very much one of those people. He puts out fires. He calms people down. He'll hold you close and tell you it's okay. I got you. Don't worry. Relax. Take a deep breath and start over. And with that patience, he's brought them to the brink again. We're going to build a statue for Gareca. We like literally, he's the best Peruvian manager. Best manager Peru has ever had, and we're lucky to have him. And it's going to be a sad day when he goes, because I think we're all going to be bawling our eyes out, all us Peruvians, because what he's done for the program, what he's done to bring our beautiful game to the world stage. It's just a marvel to see, and I'm excited. I got my tickets for all the Peru group stages. Me and my dad are going. He's never been to World Cup, and so we're gonna just party it up. And I told people in 2018 when we beat Australia in a game that meant nothing, I was telling people, look, this is not the end of the journey. This is the beginning of the journey. We're coming back. We belong in this tournament, and I am 1 win away from being right. And so I'm really excited to really share this with all my fellow Peruvians in Qatar. I hope we do it. And it should be fun. And regardless of the fact, they got France right off the bat potentially. That's going to be really tough. But then they got Tunisia in the second game, and then they got Denmark in the third game. So hopefully we get the good win over Tunisia, and we'll play our hearts out versus Denmark, and we'll advance out of the group.
All right, so let's move on and discuss things in the Bundesliga, which was back up and running this week after the international break. Two things. After this weekend, the table kind of starts to look a lot like what we had anticipated it would look like at the beginning of the season. But I would say that the biggest story was RB Leipzig absolutely battering Borussia Dortmund 4-1 in a game that did not at any point in time look like even that close, right? I thought it could have been 5, 6, 7 to nothing. RB Leipzig. So the net result, it ends up with 6 games left, Bayern now up to a 9-point lead, followed by Borussia Dortmund, Leverkusen, Leipzig in the Champions League places, and then Freiburg in the UEFA Cup spot. Hoffenheim holding down the European Conference League spot, but only by 3 points over Union Berlin. 28 games and all that excitement later, we start to get what we thought we were going to get anyway.
You know, well, I will tell you, there is a surprise, and it's Freiburg. Freiburg is still the surprise team. They're in the Europa League spot, and it looks like they're going to stay there. I think they're going to do better than Hoffenheim for the rest of the season. And I know they're only 1 point away, 3 points away from Leipzig, but Leipzig has been on a tear. I mean, like, look, just take the game versus Dortmund, for example. You know, Dortmund had the ball 60+% of the time. That meant nothing. They did nothing with the ball. And then whenever Leipzig had the ball, especially with Conrad Leimer, who had a fantastic game with his with the 2 goals, Dortmund just had no defense whatsoever. And now I know why they wanted to pay big money for Nicolas Sula. You know, I know he's going to be a big fish in a little pond. That's fine. Let him do what he wants to do. But they need a player like him to shore up his defense because it's been atrocious. Now, all that being said, you know, we want to talk about how Dortmund had no defense, how Haaland's been hurt all these matches. They're still second in the league, you know, and partially because RB Leipzig had an awful start to the season, but they're climbing back up. They are a threat to go past Leverkusen for the number 3 spot. I mean, I really think that Leipzig are going nowhere but up. They're not going to have a meltdown. All their engines are firing, and it's sad because I really wanted Freiburg to be in the Champions League, but Leipzig had other plans. And in Hoffenheim, even though Chris Richards came back, they lost 2 in a row so far. And guess who they got next week? RB Leipzig. So prepare for 3 in a row, Hoffenheim, and prepare to sit down in the Europa Conference for a bit.
At the other end of the table, it's been hinted at for a while that this was possible, but Hertha Berlin has sunk down the table, and they now sit in that relegation playoff race. That being said, they're there on goal differential behind Arminia Bielefeld, but it's a pretty big different. We're talking Bielefeld has a -16 goal differential. Hertha Berlin is -32. They can't score. They don't score. They can't defend. Is the only thing that they have going for them, and this might be true, is just that Greuther Fürth is just that much worse.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if this was a Schalke, for example, or Bremen, Hertha Berlin would be in the bottom of the league. I mean, they're just terrible. They had an investor come in several years ago, you know, around the time that Klinsmann got hired and fired, not too long afterwards. splashed the cash, had some big signings, like Cunha, for example, I think from Brazil. He didn't pan out. All the play, the money's gone. It just got wasted. Nothing to show for it. Hertha Berlin, with their poor piss management, deserve to be relegated. And you know what? It's a sad day because they play in a historic stadium. They're a historic club, and now they threw it all away because of their mismanagement, and it serves them right. And maybe they'll learn something from it. Maybe they'll get someone to rescue them again. But they're just piss poor, man. I mean, I'm shocked. You know, Hertha Berlin, the old lady is going to fall down into the second Bundesliga, and you know, it's sad. You know, you don't like to see historic teams fall, but they deserve it. They have every right to be. You know, and Arminia Bielefeld, you know, I thought like Stuttgart actually was going to be in this position, but this, you know, and I'm sort of rooting for them a little bit because they have the American manager and Pellegrino Matarazzo, but you know, they sort of still righted the ship a tiny bit. They got the draw this past week, but they play Dortmund coming up. But yeah, if Armenia, I'm thinking it's gonna be an Armenian Bielefeld just swapping spots for the rest of the season, to see who's gonna get relegated and then who's gonna go to the relegation playoff.
Am I correct in saying that if Hertha Berlin go down, there wouldn't be a West Berlin team in the Bundesliga? Because are Union Berlin an East Berlin team? I thought they were East German.
I think Union Berlin is East. I'm not too sure. Stat Boy's looking it up right now. They are in a neighborhood called Köpenick, Berlin. And Matt and the professor might know. So, Professor, take it away.
Union are a East Berlin squad. They play in the suburbs of what used to be East Berlin.
All right, so that they are one of two. If my memory serves me, there are only two East German teams in the Bundesliga right now: Union Berlin and RB Leipzig. Right.
Depends on how you want to frame RB Leipzig, but yes.
Yeah. So, thank you, Professor. When we look over Rob, when we look over at what's going on in the Bundesliga too, it's a pretty tight race. We're talking about 2 points separating Schalke in fourth and Werder in first, right? So looking at the automatic promotion spot, and then who would be in the playoffs to go to in that relegation playoff scrap. How do you see that go with so Werder sitting on 52, another former Bundesliga club, Darmstadt on 51, ahead of St. Pauli, the team that we all really want to see in the Bundesliga again, on goal difference, and then the podcast darlings, Coach Matt and Coach G's team, trying to make the immediate comeback. Schalke down in fourth on 50 points, but with a superior goal difference to all of the teams above them. So how do you see that race going, and your thoughts on it?
Oh man, this week is going to be crucial. The next match day is going to be, because St. Pauli play Bremen, and they can easily flip flop right there in the spot. And I want to say that Schalke are going to be either making it outright promoted or in the playoff, and I think Darmstadt will be the one that slightly misses it. I think tough matchup versus Nuremberg coming up. So that's not going to be easy. They're fighting for their lives as well to make it up there. They're not too far away either, so they have plenty to play for. But I think St. Pauli it's kind of like been teetering a little bit. They started off hot, and then now they're like, they give you a draw here, a win, and a loss here and there. Nothing really super consistent. Schalke had 3 wins in a row, and they might be picking up steam. I think Darmstadt's going to be the one out. I really do. I think it'll be Bremen, Schalke, and then St. Pauli in the playoff. And St. Pauli has an excellent chance to win the playoff. I think they're a good squad. I think they really, this is one of their few chances because, who knows if they can hold on to players come next season. They had an excellent season. And if they don't make it into promotion, some clubs are going to become sniffing for them, some of their players, and then poaching them potentially from Bundesliga 1 squad. So, but yeah, no, I think they have a good shot, and that's how I see the table as Bremen, Schalke, St. Pauli, and Darmstadt. I'm missing out.
All right, man. Well, we want to thank you for coming on, talking to us about the U.S. men's national team, Peru, and all things Bundesliga, and we'll get you back next week to do more of the same. All right. So
good night.
And I know you'll be around in case we want to talk a little MLS a little bit later on. And we're gonna
hang out, Rob. Hang out.
Yeah. We may need to, I forgot that we may need to talk some MLS later in the time, but we're going to turn our attention to our Eastern European and Liverpool and expert Professor Matt. How goes it, my friend?
It goes well, Mike. It goes well.
So, Stead, we all got together this weekend and had a lovely meal down in Philadelphia. Matt and I and Chelsea Mike and a couple other people. And then we went up and watched that qualifying game. So it was a lovely dinner, a lot of good, beer, wine, some great food, great camaraderie, just a really good time. So thanks for coming out, Matt. And I hope to see you again. But
we'll have to do this soon.
Before we turn our attention, we talk about the potential of that Ukraine playoff, but what did not happen. And, the potential that they could get that together. Also, hearing that Dynamo Kiev was going to be doing some international playing. We want to talk about that. Let's talk about your other favorite team, the Reds, who came on, have been coming on like gangbusters. Top of the form table as it goes right now, heading into this weekend and a top of the table clash with Manchester City and a chance to take the lead in the Premier League pretty much for the first time since they won the doggone thing the season before last. All the momentum is with Liverpool. They picked up a 3-1 win against Benfica. This is a team that is hitting on all cylinders and still competing on 4 fronts right now, trying to win that legendary quadruple. Give us your thoughts on this matchup with Manchester City first, how you think that's going to go, and what do you think are the keys to the game?
The positives, as I see it, and I seem like I'm, a broken record every time I come on here, but since, the acquisition of Diaz and just health, I mean, the problem last year was health. The squad depth going into this matchup is night and day compared to what it was last year at this time. And we, in terms of form, we are, probably, the most consistent or the best team, not just in England and Europe at this point, probably. But if you look at the performances, and even today, 3-1 looks a lot better than what that match actually was. We were outplayed for a good chunk of the second half. But here's the thing, the year we won the league, and the year we won the Champions League the season before, and this is all on Klopp as far as I'm concerned, these sort of scrappy, nervy sort of games, we win now. And I think the keys to Sunday are going to be if Klopp plays the usual back four: Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, Van Dijk, who's looking like old Van Dijk pre-injury Van Dijk, and Joel Matip. I think we have a damn good chance of pulling this through because you can't score on us anymore. It is like that, 2019, 2020 season where, it's damn hard to put the ball in the back of the net, which is kind of important because I'll be honest, since the AFCON, Mo's looked a little suspect. We're not scoring goals at the same clip we were earlier in the season, but it doesn't seem like we have to. So I think, the defense is going to be key. The midfield's probably going to be key. And possibly Man City's own injuries, right? They're coming into this hurt, wounded, unlike last year. So, I mean, we'll see. I'm giving us a realistic chance of pulling this off on Sunday. I have a better feeling about this match than weirdly I do 2 weeks from now at Wembley in the FA Cup.
Now, the Wembley FA Cup match, which probably shouldn't be played in London because that of rail replacement and track work, meaning that none of the fans from Liverpool or Manchester can actually make it down to the game. They petitioned to have the game relocated so that they could actually, have fans. And it's not like there's not a stadium big enough in either Liverpool or Manchester that is not.
Have it at Old Trafford,
Well, I mean, if you want to have it at Old Trafford or you want to have it at Goodison, it doesn't really matter. There are plenty of stadiums that are big enough that can house that game that aren't the Etihad or Anfield. It's a shame that it's going to be such a struggle for those fans to get there. But we are talking about, pretty much Manchester City and Liverpool playing each other twice in 6 days in season defining games with a Champions League quarterfinal shoved in between that could potentially, depending on the results, and I know I set them up to play a third game for everything that matters, right? So you said that you feel much better about this game on Sunday than you do about the one next Saturday. One of the things with Klopp is his tendency after certain things have been accomplished to take his foot off the gas. We saw that very much in the restart after COVID in the year that Liverpool won the title. What looked to be a records points haul and an argument to be made for them being probably one of the greatest Premier League teams. They took their foot off the gas after COVID, losses, draws, dropped points, ended up falling well short of the pace that they had set beforehand because, there was no reason to play these games anymore. How is Klopp going to prioritize what is in front of him in an effort to keep the maximum number of people healthy while still competing on the three fronts that remain in front of him right now?
Well, I think the way that you sort of contextualize that, I think things are a bit different. Part of it is our squad depth between now and 2019, 2020 is night and day. I mean, we made a triple substitution in the second half today, took off Thiago, Sadio Mane, Mohamed Salah, arguably three of the best players in the world at their position, and put on Diego Jota, Bobby Firmino, and our captain Jordan Henderson. We weren't afforded that luxury 2-3 years ago. I mean, when we were starting the bench, we were starting guys like Shaqiri, the corpse formerly known as Adam Lallana. It's sort of night and day in that regard. I think part of that was Klopp could not prioritize everything because he didn't have the squad depth. The other thing too, especially post-COVID, is club teams, and I saw this at Dortmund, I'm sure Rob can speak to this too, they very much run on momentum And once that sort of momentum somehow is broken, it just doesn't click. My greatest fear usually around like the Christmas time is a 2-week break in Spain, because I know that for a month it's going to take them to get back sort of in form again. So in a way, all of these fixtures, as much as Jurgen gets in front of the media and says things like, "Oh, I wish we had a longer break, like in Germany," and he does have a point there, but may I just say, I think the fact that there are so many fixtures all at once is actually a good thing, not a bad thing. Now, at least that because we have the squad depth, and it's crazy. Like the only two, if we were just saying injuries, the only two that would really panic me would be Van Dijk, because he's just so goddamn integral to everything we do, and Allison. As crazy as that sounds, those are the only two names that I would be.
Well, those are two massive names.
Mhm.
In Kelleher, you have a pretty solid backup who did win a penalty shootout to take the League Cup, but not on the same caliber as Allison. And we saw how the injury to Van Dijk, and one of the worries coming into this season was whether or not how quickly Van Dijk was going to be able to get up to full fitness. Prior to you joining us, I would talk often to British Will about the fact that one of Van Dijk's greatest attributes was that throughout his career, he had been unusually healthy.
Yeah.
Right. He was not a guy who missed a lot of games. He's a big physical man who sustained a ACL injury. And we've seen these now, granted, medical technology has gotten a lot better over the course of the last 10 years. These are not the same sorts of career derailing things that they were before, but to see him come, one of the hardest things that you hear from athletes coming back from an ACL is learning to trust that leg when you have to plant, when you have to jump, when you have to do anything, learning and feeling comfortable. And I've got to admit, I was very, 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 very surprised that he was able to return to peak Van Dijkness as quickly as he did. It's almost like he hasn't missed a beat being out for as long as he was. And that's kind of shocking. So yeah, I could see where you would say like an injury to either Allison or Van Dijk has the potential to derail the season, but those are two massive cogs in this Liverpool lineup where probably the only two positions where you don't have an automatic like for like replacement that you can just bring in, slot in, and have them move forward almost like you wouldn't miss anything.
Yeah, and I think with Van Dijk, I'll say this too. We do roll 4 center backs deep. I mean, this kid Kanate that we got from Leipzig.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Joe Gomez is good. Matip's good. The communication, the leadership, the brains that Van Dijk provides, because we were sort of treading water a little bit last season without him. But the one thing that was missing, and it became more apparent the more the more our senior center back started dropping off, was Van Dijk's the conductor of that whole defense. Without him, it's not the same. And so, in talent wise, yeah, okay, Kanate could slip in there, and you have a similar physical presence, but he can't command the back line. Matip, I think, is one of the most criminally underrated defenders in the world at the moment, but he's not that guy. So I think a lot of in terms of the motivation, going back to your earlier question, and how is he going to prioritize stuff? I don't think they're going to, he's going to take the foot totally off the gas, because we have a squad now where we can, barring a really big injury, mix and match. I don't think we're going to see them this weekend, obviously, but look, Joe Gomez is going to get time at right back. My Greek man, Simicast, is going to get time at left back. We saw today in quarterfinal him starting Abby Keita. I don't think that those trust levels were there last year. But they are now, because it's like, okay, well, if he doesn't do okay, I can bring a Henderson off the bench. I can bring, a Curtis Jones off the bench. And then, like I said, today, even Salah wasn't all that good. And at the 60th minute, Klopp was just like, okay, we're going to bring on the Brazilian and Jota and switch it up.
Final question on this is, we know how competitive Pep Guardiola is. And with every defeat to Liverpool, the ability that he has to win trophies this year decreases. A loss on Sunday, now they trail in the league. A loss next week would eliminate them from both the cup competitions. Any concern that you're going to face an increasingly desperate Pep Guardiola without anything to lose, and he's going to throw whatever it is possible up against the wall just to and we know how obsessive Pep Guardiola is about all things. He's just going to stew over this and obsess about ways to beat Liverpool next time he faces them.
Mike, that is literally the reason why I'm more concerned about the cup tie. Because he knows he has two, and in a one-off against a desperate Pep Guardiola, and Pep Guardiola who, depending on what happens, because that tie against Atletico Madrid is far from over.
Yes, very much so.
Might be out of the freaking Champions League. Yeah, no, that terrifies the hell out of me. And that's where I think I keep saying, we've improved the quality of our depth, Hey, the reason that I've been saying that we need to do this is because we had to match their quality. In a one-off, and a desperate Pep Guardiola, I'm terrified of that. So that's literally why I have a better feeling about this week than I do the cup tie, because that might be his only chance for silverware.
All right. So let's turn our attention to, as we've been talking, about Ukraine and all things going on with them and how this.
We also want to discuss Poland too, because they actually did.
Oh, I did forget about Poland, and how I forgot about Poland. So yes, Poland winning the playoffs. They have themselves an interesting groups. So let me get your thoughts on the group that Poland finds themselves in.
I've heard some people refer to it as, potential group of death. I don't see it quite that way, because I see a clear favorite in Argentina, and I see a clear whipping boy in Saudi Arabia. Everything's going to come down to that Poland-Mexico match. And I think Poland can do it simply because we have Lewandowski and they don't. And you saw in the playoff against Sweden, some of our younger players, Szymanski, Moder, Cash, starting to finally come through, because that was part of Poland's problem for a while. We had the Lewandowski generation that was really good. We knew we had young talent, but they hadn't shown anything. And pretty much everyone from age 24 to 29 kind of sucks. I mean, there's Jan Bendarek, who's a useful center back. If Poland doesn't Poland themselves against Mexico, I think they have a decent shot of at least getting Lewandowski to the knockout stage. But it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, because I don't think we can beat Argentina, or at least the Argentina that I'm seeing right now in this form. And Mexico's tough, but this isn't Mexico of even 3 years ago.
I think the thing, Poland's definitely got an advantage in size.
Yeah.
And that is one of these Achilles heels for Mexico is size. But 4 years ago, we saw them go up against Germany, a Germany team that was probably on the decline a little more than we realized, lacking the sort of speed that Mexico had, and figure out a way to get around it by playing around them rather than trying to go through them. Right. A lot of this is we know what Poland's game plan for Mexico is going to be. And when you have a Robert Lewandowski, it's a pretty doggone effective game plan. Get the ball down the field, put the ball into Robert Lewandowski, and let him do great things. And he has proven time and time again that he can do it, right? Where Mexico is at their weakest, and I'm pretty sure Rob would agree with me and probably Stead too, is that their center backs can be a little bit frail at time. And as good as Memo Ochoa is, he is by far not the biggest nor the most physical goalkeeper that they could find. Right now, where it's going to be a problem for Poland is if they get CONCACAF.
Yes, and I know exactly what you mean there. Yeah,
if they allow
and Poland. Speaking as someone who's rooted for the Polish national team his entire life, we have a tendency to get CONCACAF.
Yeah, Mexico is going to commit those niggling fouls and the delaying tactics, all of that stuff, to sort of just disrupt the rhythm of Poland. That's what they do best, right? And I do think at the end of the day, those are two pretty evenly matched teams.
It's going to be a really, really entertaining match. And I don't really know much about Mexico's manager. Poland's manager literally that was his second match at the helm against Sweden, but he's been with the under-21s now for 4 years. And if Poland does have is he back? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say Tato Martino,
okay,
former Barcelona manager, former manager of. I think though the issue is Martino is Argentinian; he's not Mexican, and I have felt at times like there has been a massive disconnect in between Martino and the Mexican players insofar as what he wants them to do at that level and what they're best at, right? Rob, you said it, they haven't, that front three hasn't shined, but then again, you've also got Raul Jimenez coming off of a broken cranium. So
yeah, but there's only so much you could he's playing in the Premier League, he's starting in the Premier League. And the problem,
but he's not scoring a lot. Right?
No, he's not. And Tecatito Corona and Chucky Lozano, they're good players. All the front three is really talented. But just take the game versus the US at home at the Azteca. They were sort of invincible, and Tata Martino, he's for pretty much the last 5 months, ever since the 2-0 in Cincinnati, he's been feeling the pressure. The fans were cheering, or not cheering, they were heckling him and demanding him to resign at the Azteca. It was very, very loud. But that's, look, if you're a Mexico fan, it comes with the territory. They can hate the manager, right? Yeah. So but they
never liked their manager.
They never, and look, it's a credit to the Mexican Federation that they have not sacked Tata Martino, because look, I think that if the U.S. beat Mexico in the previous in the World Cup qualifier at the Azteca, it would have been a total riot. The Mexico press would have went off on Tata Martino, and it pretty much would have demanded him to resign. But they haven't. They have had plenty of chances, especially when they lost to Canada, to sack him, and they have not. And so I think he's going to do good. I think I think that they have too much talent to.
Well, there are
Pretty
two
much,
things
yeah.
about that, though. Number one, I don't know if there's anybody else who can come in and do the job. Number two, I'm pretty sure after COVID and everything else, the Mexican Federation literally does not have the money to pay off his contract if they fired him.
Nope.
So much like when we were at with that marriage of inconvenience at Barca between Ronald Koeman, like they have to let him go through this because they can't afford to bring in another coach at this point in time. And so the results haven't been what they wanted, but they haven't been that awful, right? We'll get through the World Cup. You know, actually, I think the worst thing in the world that could happen to Mexico right now would be that they get through the group and actually win a game in the knockout stages, because then they almost have to retain Tato Martino, which I know is something that they don't particularly want to do. So before we get out of here, Matt, let's talk a little bit about Ukraine and all things over there. They did not play this qualifying match against Scotland, which will be played in Scotland. What are the chances that we've seen that postponed until June? It'll be pretty much a back-to-back. What are the chances that they are actually able to play and field a team in June that is capable of playing?
Well, this Dynamo Kiev charity tour might weirdly be a way to get a team there. There's a good chunk of the national squad that plays abroad, but you can't really flesh out. You get maybe a starting 11 out of that of some quality. A fair number of the domestic base players play for Dynamo, and the entire Dynamo squad has relocated to Romania because Lucescu is the manager and he has connections apparently. And so they've been training along with the domestic base players from Shakhtar. We're not doing a tour, but they're using the facilities. And my thoughts and the thoughts of a lot of other Ukrainian football watchers is, look, this series of friendlies is not just to raise awareness about the situation in Ukraine, not just to raise money for the humanitarian disaster that is Ukraine, but it's also a way to get a lot of the domestic based players for the national team at least some sort of football, so that when June comes around, you're not looking at a team of guys who've just been out in the cold for 5-6 months.
All right, now that's a sporting issue. So the sporting issue is actually getting a team there that can play, right, and play competently. Right? Then there is, I guess, the social moral issue of should they play if this conflict continues to go on. Should they play? Right? We've reached this point. We've heard the manager say, it's hard to fathom playing a soccer game while the country's at war. But we've also known that, countries involved in conflicts can cause truces, or this can be a symbol of unity, national pride, a source of all of that in rough times. Are they going to be in a position where morally, ethically, mentally, they can go into this match against Scotland and potentially Wales and compete and play?
The moral and the ethical, I do not speak for all Ukrainians. I certainly do not speak for Ukrainian football. What I can tell you from the community that I'm fairly tapped into, and the Ukrainian FA, because they don't seem to have an issue with, playing this match eventually. Trying to field a team and trying to compete and trying to get to the biggest, sporting event in the world is seen, if anything, as a morale booster. This sort of small country up against all odds narrative. In terms of the emotional, the psychological, I have no goddamn idea. And I don't think any of us do. And that's going to be, even if they play these matches, because I'll be honest, on paper, I would argue if we take the conflict, which we can't, out of the equation. But if you give me the Ukrainian national team as I think it would have looked like, I think to a man they're probably more talented than both Scotland and Wales.
The only advantage I think that Scotland has over the Ukraine is it would be the fact that it was going to be played in Scotland.
Yeah.
Right. If it's played in the Ukraine, I think, Ukraine wins. Wales, I don't know, and a neutral stadium wherever. But yeah, I think certainly. Yeah, we know that Ukraine got hammered by England in the knockout rounds of the Euros last year, but unlike Scotland, Ukraine made it.
Yeah, and I think that was more indicative of England is one of the 4 or 5 best teams in Europe and arguably the world right now. The FIFA rankings are fraudulent, but where Ukraine is, which is sort of somewhere between 20 and 25 in the world, is probably about as accurate as it is. They're a second-tier European team at this point, or maybe a third tier if you want to, sort of look at it that way. So I psychologically, I don't know. I don't know what kind of shape these guys are going to be in. But my understanding is this charity tour that Dynamo is playing, the series of friendlies, is partially designed to at least deal with the physical. Because remember, the Ukrainian league, for the domestic-based players, they haven't kicked frickin' ball since December of last year because of the winter break. So they desperately need to actually just play.
So it almost becomes as though the Dynamo tour is subbing as a national team training camp, and then you'll throw in the likes of a Zinchenko, who's in form with Man City.
Zinchenko, Yaremchuk, those boys. And the fact that the Shakhtar contingent is there in this camp in Romania, I think speaks to that. So yeah, I do think it will eventually get played. What kind of mental state, these Ukrainian players are going to be in, I have no idea.
And nobody does except people in their camp. All right, buddy. Well, we want to thank you a lot for all of that.
Thank you for having me on, Mike. And,
all right.
We'll do this again next
week. Stead. That was a lot.
That was a lot. That's a packed show.
Yeah. That was a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You're
probably exhausted.
No, you know what? It went by quickly, and it was a lot of fun and keeping pace and talking all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was just surprised at how much we were able to get into, and then knowing like we had actually planned to get into more.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But there's been a lot going on, especially with the qualifications. It's hard not to get excited about this World Cup. And I know one thing I'm sure if I said this or not, but it seems to me that around the world, every national team is better than they were 20 years ago. Outside of the big boys, you're looking at though, but you go through and you're going, wow, I was looking at the draw going, I can't say I'd want to be in any group right now because it just seems like, and maybe it's just due to the exposure that we're getting from countries throughout the world, but these countries, man, people are producing talent all over the world now, which lets you know how global the game is. I mean, talent is coming from anywhere.
A rising tide lifts all ships.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the tide's been rising
big time.
pretty steadily. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we have quality leagues with quality training in countries that 20 years ago would not have. 20 years ago, there was no MLS.
No,
I mean, you think about it.
there was a league, but it wasn't really like there really wasn't anything there.
MLS will be turning 30 relative in a few years, right? And we look at the quality of play, and you and I will debate amongst ourselves how that's affected the U.S. men's national team. But the one thing that we both agree on is the fact that how beneficial it has been to the other teams in CONCACAF, how important MLS has been to the development of Canada, to the development of Jamaica, and other teams, right, in South America. Just like the globalization of the Premier League, La Liga, those leagues have benefited and lifted up teams in Africa and places. So you're very much correct in saying that the teams are just better, and you can look and say that there aren't any teams that you feel are complete and total minnows.
Yeah, just totally out of their element being in the World Cup. Yeah, I didn't get that feeling. Probably maybe for the first time. I didn't get that feeling. And I mean, outside of the host nation, which, as you said, they're doing a huge push to be competitive in this tournament. I can't say that there's a squad there that I'm going, man, they just lucked out because they happen to be playing in Oceania or something like that. It just didn't happen.
And maybe that's a good thing to have a World Cup, a potential World Cup like this before we expand it to 48 teams, because we know the
likes of like a Thailand or something
like that. Yeah. We know in a couple of years that that's not going to be the case.
I will say, though, what will be fun, because hopefully we're still doing this show in 2026 when we have 48 teams, is the number of new kits we're going to be able to analyze, because there's some great ones throughout the world that we never see. In fact, a buddy of mine is going to send me one from Nepal because they have a nice orange and white. It's beautiful.
I need to get.
Gotta send me one of those.
I gotta get up on that, but again, we will
that kit show will be fun. That'll be a fun
kit show will be fun. We will definitely do a couple of World Cup previews leading up to the World Cup in November. We got to find a date for the World Cup. No, Liz, we're not trying to find him, but he's got to have somebody.
He's gonna be on Japan.
Yeah. And we've got to do a kit review show of all the 32 kits once we find out the teams. But we're going to put a bow on this one. I want to give a big thanks to Leo for coming on and joining us and announcing our partnership with Amped Up Sports. We hope that will be beneficial. We assure you that though we are partnering with something that resembles a professional outlet, you can still expect the same level of buffoonery and asininery that you have become accustomed to. We will not do any better than we normally do, because we are just physically and mentally incapable of actual improvement. So please, the level of juvenile discourse and unexplainable analysis that you have become accustomed to, we will continue to maintain, because that is what we do best.
Absolutely.
I want to thank Coach G and Los for coming on, talking a little U.S. men's national team, the World Cup draw, and Spurs and Arsenal. Of course, Celtic Cam for coming on and talking about the Old Firm and the Scottish Premier League. Bayern Rob, just talking to everything. Like, how many things could you possibly have covered? Peru, the U.S. men's national team, the Bundesliga, and we didn't even get to World Cup. We didn't even get to MLS tonight. And of course, Professor Matt giving us his thoughts on Liverpool, Man City, and the situation with the Ukrainian national team. And of course, Stead, you make all of this happen because you make sure all the trains run on time. I appreciate all of you. Thanks. We did all right this week. We'll try and do better for next week. So for the cast of millions of the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, I'm Mike, and have a great week.